So, hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, guys, after clearing the first round, my friend was invited for the second technical round for the generative AI engineer position at Deloitte. This round was much more practical compared to the first one. The interview was not interested in definition anymore. He wanted to understand whether the candidate had actually worked on generative AI project or was just familiar with the buzzwords. The interview started with a simple question. Tell me about a generative AI project that you have worked on recently. So my friend explained a document chatbot project built using RAG, embeddings, and a vector database. The interviewer seemed satisfied but immediately followed with another question. If ChatGPT is so powerful, why don't we just send the entire PDF directly to the model? My friend explained context window limitations, token cost, and retrieval efficiency. The interviewer needed and said, good, that's what I wanted to hear. Then the discussion moved towards chunking. So interviewer asked, what chunk size do you usually use? So my friend replied, it depends on the document type, but generally between 500 to 1000 tokens with overlap. The interviewer smiled and asked, interesting, why add overlap? So he explained how overlap helps preserve context between chunks and improve retrieval quality. The interviewer looked impressed, and because many candidates apparently forget these details. So next came a question that catches many candidates off guard. Interviewer asked, explain embeddings without using the word vector. So for a few seconds, there was a complete silence. Then my friend answered, embedding converts text into a mathematical representation so that similar meanings can be identified and compared efficiently. The interviewer laughed and said, that's probably one the better explanation I have heard today. So after that, interviewer switched to a real world problem. He asked, imagine your chatbot is giving wrong answer to users. What would be your debugging approach? So instead of immediately blaming the LLM, my friend said he would first verify document chunking, retrieval quality, prompt structure, and source relevance. The interviewer interrupted and said, exactly. Most people immediately say, change the model. Question was about hallucinations. Interviewer asked, can hallucinations can be completely removed? Many candidates say yes. My friend said, no, they can be reduced significantly but not eliminated entirely. The interviewer seemed happy with that answer and continued. Now came one of the most interesting questions of the interview. So basically, interviewer asked, suppose I ask a question in your RAG application. Explain everything that happened behind the scene. So my friend explained user sends query converted to embeddings. Similarly, search runs, relevant chunks retrieved, context added to the prompt, LLM generates answer, response returned. So this is kind of a flow chart of RAG response. The interviewer stopped him and asked, where do you think the maximum latency happens? This was clearly a practical experience question. A few moments later, the interviewer moved towards LLM parameters. Interviewer asked, what happened when temperature is set to zero? My friend answered, the model becomes more deterministic and gives more consistent response. The interviewer then asked, what if it increased to 1.2? Then its answer was how creativity increases but reliability may decrease. The interviewer immediately noted something in his sheet. Then came a scenario based question from his side. The question was, a client says their company data must never leave their environment. What generative AI solution would you propose? So he answered, like my friend talked about Azure, OpenAI, private deployment, access control, encryption, and enterprise security. The interviewer looked genuinely impressed because the discussion shifted from AI to business requirements. Towards the end, the interviewer asked what was the probably the toughest question of the round. Interviewer asked, design a chatbot that can serve 10,000 employees and answer questions from internal company document. My friend started drawing the architecture, documenting the ingestion, chunking, embedding, vector database, retrieval layer, LLM layer, authentication, monitoring, feedback loop. The interviewer listens all the stuff carefully and then asks, how would you scale this system if usage suddenly increased 10 times? At this point, it felt more like a system design interview question than a generative AI interview. After nearly an hour of discussion, the interviewer ended the round with a final statement. And he said, I can see that you have actually worked on these concepts instead of just reading about them. And honestly, that's what helped my friend clear this round. So the biggest lesson from this Deloitte generative AI interview is simple. Don't just memorize definition of RAG, embedding, chunking, prompt engineering, and vector database. Interviewers are now focusing on implementation, debugging, scalability, real world scenario, and all. If you can explain how these systems work in production, you will stand out from the other candidate. That's it for this interview experience. If you would like part three, where I will share the manager and client facing portion, let me know the comments. We'll see you in the next video.